Activist Radio is on the air. You have tuned into the Mark Harrington Show, sponsored by Created Equal. Mark is training a new generation of leaders to take on the culture of death and win.
You don't like abortion, don't have one.
The only thing that can be said to be objective truth is that there is no objective truth.
It does come out in one piece. It comes out in one piece.
I would argue that we certainly are not all created equal.
And now, here's Mark.
Your radio activist is on the air. Mark Harrington here, coming to you live on Salem radio stations across America and on my social media platforms. My name's Mark Harrington. I am the executive director for Created Equal, a pro-life organization based out of Columbus, Ohio. And if you're not familiar with me and the work that I've been doing for the last 20 years, my vision is to raise up future leaders to take on the culture of death and win, to fight for the preborn. And prior to our launch in 2011, when I started Created Equal, I said to myself, if at the end of my life I have not raised up or trained a generation standing behind me to fight in the culture war, I will have failed. That was the vision that God gave me in 2011. That's why we started Created Equal. That's why I go on radio stations all across America, on social media as well. And I've spent the last 20 years of my life working full-time to save babies from abortion with Operation Rescue, the Center for Bioethical Reform, using abortion victim photography. That is, pictures of abortion, video and photos on college and high school campuses across America. I've traveled to 1,000 universities across the nation, inspiring future leaders, apologists, and mentoring future leaders, and introducing them to cutting-edge technology in the culture war. And this, the Mark Harrington Show, what you're listening to now on Salem radio stations and online, is an extension of that vision that I have to raise up leaders and to activate Christians to advance the cause of equality and the gospel of Jesus Christ. So, if you're just tuning in and you wonder who I am, you have never heard my voice before, especially in cities like Detroit and Cleveland and other places, give us a listen. Tune in every week to the Mark Harrington Show, and also follow us on our various social media platforms. I think you're going to enjoy the program. You're going to learn some things. We're going to bring you up to speed with what's happening in the culture war, specifically on the abortion issue, and how you can be engaged in that battle. This is about you. This is about putting boots on the ground and making a difference for Jesus Christ in the public square. If you want to find out more about the Mark Harrington Show, go to markharrington.org. That's markharrington.org. So today's topic, what I want to do in the short time that we have, in the next 30 minutes or so, is talk about making abortion history. Making it history. Ending it for good. Starting with the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio, which is where I reside. And we've had some things happen in the last several years that I want to bring you up to speed with. Specifically, a piece of legislation that has been making its way through the Ohio State House for the last 8 years. Starting in 2011, the bill was named the Heartbeat Bill. Janet Porter Folger from Faith to Action introduced this bill in 2011. I was with her on the south steps of the Ohio State House when we introduced this bill for the first time. And what it would do is ban abortion at a detectable heartbeat. That is, if the heartbeat is detected, the baby is protected. We introduced that in 2011, and then over the last several years, it kind of went through the process, got through the House of Representatives, got through the Senate, and then 2 years ago it was vetoed by John Kasich, our governor, and just recently in the lame duck session, just a few days ago, in fact, it was vetoed again, and the House and Senate were unable to override Governor Kasich's veto. But the point of the matter is, the last 8 years, we are on the precipice. We are on the edge of ending abortion for all intents and purposes in the state of Ohio very soon. Before I go any further, I want to read the statement from John Kasich. This is our governor. He's going to be a former governor, thankfully, in many regards. This is his veto statement. I want to read this to you, and then I'm going to comment about it. This is basically Governor Kasich's veto statement on the reasons to veto substitute House Bill 258, which is the heartbeat bill. And he says this. He says, substitute House Bill 258 says that abortion cannot be performed if a heartbeat has been detected in the unborn child. This is contrary to the Supreme Court of the United States' current rulings on abortion, because the lower federal courts are bound to follow the U.S. Supreme Court's precedents on abortion. This bill will end up in a lawsuit, and we will be the losing party, meaning the state of Ohio, and will be faced to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer dollars defending it. So this is Governor Kasich's statement, and I want to take two parts to this and just kind of deal with them. First is he says that this is contrary, at least the heartbeat bill would be contrary to the United States Supreme Court rulings on abortion. I've maintained for a very long time that we shouldn't care about what the Supreme Court has decided, especially in Roe versus Wade. It's not the heartbeat bill that's unconstitutional. It's Roe versus Wade that's unconstitutional. And those who bend the knee to the worst decision in U.S. history, which is Roe v. Wade, are no better than the ones who wrote it. Governor Kasich's job is not to make judicial decisions like a judge. He is the chief executive of the state of Ohio. His job is to execute the laws that are passed, the bills that are passed in the General Assembly, not to become a member of the U.S. Supreme Court of the Federal Judiciary. That's not his job. For him to determine that this is unconstitutional, that it's going to be struck down because of prior abortion rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court, is not his job. His job is to defend life, defend the U.S. Constitution, defend life at its earliest stages, which includes abortion. And the other thing is, he doesn't have a crystal ball. What if the Supreme Court were to change in the next year or two? What if we got one or two more conservative, strict constructionists on the U.S. Supreme Court? Might that change the outcome? So Governor Kasich's wrong in this decision, saying it's contrary to the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on abortion. Well, so what? So what? So what if it's unconstitutional? So what if, because Roe v. Wade, we need to defy that law, and we need a governor to stand up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Then he says it'll cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, the state legislatures, state governments commonly spend money defending laws that are passed in the legislature. They never bother to mention that much, but when it's about abortion, we don't want to spend one penny. I can tell you this, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars are worth defending one innocent life. And that's where John Kasich gets it wrong. You know, it's interesting right now in Washington, we're having this debate over immigration and building the wall and so forth, if you recall. And the Democrats are saying that it's going to be too expensive. When was the last time Democrats worried about money when it came to federal spending? When was it that any government official, whether it be John Kasich or others, Republican or Democrat, cared about taxpayer dollars? But when it comes to abortion, then all of a sudden they care about the money. I mean, believe me, it's just ridiculous, the idea that the money matters in this case. So John Kasich is confused, like many Americans, many legislators, those who sit in high office, the magistrates, that we need to bend the knee to the U.S. Supreme Court in these decisions like Roe versus Wade. No, it's his job to defy unjust law, and therefore his veto holds no weight with me. The other idea is that the idea of judicial supremacy. The U.S. Supreme Court is not supreme to the other two branches of government. We have three co-equal branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. They all do separate things checked by each other. The Supreme Court does not rise above the other two. But that's what we have today in America. For some reason, the U.S. Supreme Court, what it says outweighs what the other two branches say. And so John Kasich's got it wrong. I call it administrative judicialism. We've heard of judicial activism, right? When courts become legislators. Well, this is an administrator, or in this case, the executive, becoming a judge. Executive judicialism or administrative judicialism. It's not his job to decide what's constitutional and what's not. So anyway, this bill was vetoed. We did not get the votes to override that veto because of one senator, Senator Beagle. And we're going to play a clip. This is Senator Beagle in the decision that he made. We have a clip here we're going to play. His decision to not override John Kasich's veto of the heartbeat bill. If you would go ahead and play that clip.
As I contemplated what to do with all these various overrides in front of me, I think that there should be a standard. There's a standard for a bill to pass, and I think that there's a higher standard for it to be overridden if it's vetoed. And in looking at House Bill 258, I just didn't think it met the standard. Ultimately, you have to vote your conscience, and again, I've supported the bill in the past. I'm a pro-life voter, and they may not consider me so after today, but I've always been there on their issues. This General Assembly, in the 8 years that I've been here, we've passed a lot of pro-life legislation, and the governor signed them. And so it goes beyond the legislation itself. And that's why this is different than when I was in committee voting for this bill and why I was on the floor voting for this bill the first time, is it rises, as I said, to a different standard. And I think that this is as much about, Governor Kasich and the relationship with the General Assembly, and Governor Kasich has been supportive of me. I think we have a good working relationship, and that weighs into the question as well.
All right, so there you get it. There you go. Senator Beagle, who voted for the bill before he voted against it. Sounds like John Kerry. I don't know if this dates me a little bit, but if you go back to the Iraq War, John Kerry. John Kerry said that he voted for the war before he voted against it, if you recall. The infamous words of John Kerry, which led to his ultimate defeat in the presidential election of 2004. Well, this sounds like John Kerry when he says, I voted for it before I voted against it. He voted for the heartbeat bill when it was in committee and when it came to the Senate floor, but when given the opportunity to override John Kasich's veto, he voted against it. Now he talks about how this is voting your conscience. Really? So we're going to vote for the bill because it protects innocent life, but we're going to vote not to override because of what? Your conscience? Doesn't make any sense, right? Boils down to this. He said it. John Kasich's been good to him. This is all about politics, folks. One vote away from passing the heartbeat bill. But the good news is this. We have a new governor-elect at this point, Governor-elect Mike DeWine. And Mike DeWine has sworn to sign the heartbeat bill. And we have a clip. This is during a debate for governor, with Richard Cordray, his opponent on the Democrat side. Go ahead and play that clip.
Your position on abortion is extreme, Mike. You won't even make an exception for rape or incest, not even for rape or incest. And I noticed that you were willing in the primary to answer the question about the heartbeat bill and said that you would sign it. But now that you're asked point blank tonight, you don't seem to want to answer that question. So I'll give you the last 10 seconds of my time and let you answer that, yes or no.
I will sign the bill. I've said that many times, and of course you know that, Richard.
Well, there you go. I mean, you can't be any clearer on that. Mike DeWine, governor-elect of Ohio, says he will sign the heartbeat bill. That's different than John Kasich, who vetoed it. So, Here we have the promise of the governor-elect in more than just one venue. This is just one of many where he has said he will sign the heartbeat bill. And so as we look forward to the General Assembly in 2019 in the state of Ohio, we can make abortion history in this state, which is a bellwether state for almost everything else on abortion across the country. Everything starts in Ohio. The heartbeat bill starts here. You have to win Ohio to win the White House. It is a key state among key states. So this is an important thing. This is the first domino to drop in the pathway to ending abortion nationally. We have Ohio Right to Life, who has now said they support the bill. There is no reason why this bill should not be signed into law this year in the state of Ohio, which will put it on a track to bring down Roe versus Wade. This is a frontal attack on Roe versus Wade. Now, what I'd like to do, because we're going to be working hard to get this bill passed and on the governor's desk as early as possible in 2019. If you don't believe that this is going to end abortion in Ohio, if you don't believe that, which there are people on the conservative side that say this bill isn't going to do any good, it's not going to end in abortion and so forth, just listen to the ACLU. And I want to read, this is a meme or a graphic they put on social media a while back, and they said this: the Ohio House voted yes on the 6-week abortion ban. That's what they call it. They call it the 6-week abortion ban, not the heartbeat bill. And then they say, let's be clear, this is a total ban on abortion. Yes, it's being packaged as 6 weeks, but in reality, most women don't even know they're pregnant at that time, and it will be impossible for them to access abortion when they find out. This is true. This is true. If not all abortions, a vast majority, somewhere over 90% of all abortions will be ended by the heartbeat bill. So we're going to get behind it. We're going to be pushing this to get on the desk of Governor Mike DeWine the minute he's sworn into the office, and see if we can get this thing done in the first half of 2019, which will set a precedent for the rest of the country and set up a challenge to Roe versus Wade directly. That's the whole point. The whole point of this. So, let me quickly address those out there who think, we shouldn't do things incrementally, that we should just end abortion immediately. Of course, I want to end abortion immediately too, but I believe that we need to end it one piece of legislation at a time on the way to ending it altogether. Folks, we can do both. I'm an and both person when it comes to that. We don't want we want to save every single life we can on the way to ending all abortion and saving all preborn children ultimately. So that's why I support incremental efforts such as the heartbeat bill, and I support an all-out total ban on abortion as well. And in fact, we also are going to be seeing an introduction of the Ohio Life at Conception Act this General Assembly as well. And I think the heartbeat bill sets us on a path to be able to pass even more stricter laws like this total ban on abortion, the Ohio Life at Conception Act. So be watching for that as well as we come up to this next General Assembly. Now, in the little time that I have, let me address those out there who this is what social reformers have heard for decades, forever. Martin Luther King Jr. and others. Basically, that is that the timing's not right. That's what we hear from Governor Kasich. That's what we've heard from other pro-life advocates. That it's unconstitutional and so forth. Let me read a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was confronted with this idea of waiting till the time was right. He said this: Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Called those who favored the status quo, like outgoing Governor Kasich, as what he called civil rights moderates. And he said, quote, they are more devoted to order than justice. They are more devoted to order than justice. You hear that right now coming from our Chief Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, who is more devoted to the status quo, to maintaining peace, than he is to justice. And it says, so he says, they're more devoted to order than justice. They prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. They are constantly saying, I agree with you in your goal, but I cannot agree with your methods. This is what we often hear, right? That if you try to pass a total ban or you pass a heartbeat bill, we agree with your goal, we just don't believe with how you're going about it. I hear that all the time when people say we shouldn't use abortion victim photography over overpasses or on a jumbotron screen or on a college campus. They say, hey, I'm pro-life, but I don't agree with the way you're going about it. Dr. King dealt with that. He called that a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. See, King believed in tension. He said there's such a thing as creative tension, that you do things in order to create debate. And that's what we do here at Created Equal. You're listening to The Mark Harrington Show. You're a radio activist. You can check us out on our social media platforms, on Facebook and other things as well. Anytime you like, go to markharrington.org. Now, in the final minutes of the program that I have, I just want to bring you up to speed with some things that are going to be happening here in January with the anniversary of Roe versus Wade coming on the 22nd of January. Every single year, Created Equal goes to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. Now, if you know what the March for Life is, it's a national march on Washington from the National Mall to the U.S. Supreme Court protesting the decision of Roe versus Wade back in 1973. We don't go, that is Created Equal, myself and others, don't go to the March for Life to march or to protest. We go to reach the marchers. Why? Because there are a lot of nominal pro-life people that go to Washington that need to be preached to. We need to preach to the choir. In this case, we use a large jumbotron screen showing abortion victim photography and video along the march route, right at Constitution and Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the Canadian Embassy. A gigantic LED jumbotron showing abortion video to educate the marchers about what abortion is and does. And our message is, this is why we march. We march to end the marching. We march to end the killing. And people need to see the killing to be reminded about what goes on every single day, 2,800 times a day in America. And that's why we go with our jumbotron at the March for Life. So if you're going to the March for Life and you're going to march, which is fine, we're good, we're for that, come by and see us at Constitution and Pennsylvania Avenue, right in front of the Canadian Embassy with our jumbotron. We'll be there. You won't be able to miss us, I can tell you that. The other thing is the Women's March. This is now the third annual Women's March, which will take place across America, and the largest one will be on the Lincoln Memorial Steps in Washington, D.C. We went 3 years ago after the inauguration of Donald Trump. It was the largest gathering of anti-Trump, anti-everything good with America gathering on the mall. And we will be there in opposition to the message of the Women's March, which is primarily kill your babies. Abortion's okay. Shout your abortion. Abortion should be legal. Abortion should be safe and legal. Whatever. Pro-choice. That's what you're going to hear from the marchers at the Women's March. We go there in opposition to that because somebody needs to stand up and say, no, there's another way. No, this is wrong. No, this is the truth. No, the gospel of Jesus Christ is available to you to forgive you for your abortion and for your sins. So that's what we'll be doing the day after the March for Life, after we take the jumbotron to the March for Life and show our marchers, the pro-lifers, what abortion is. We'll be going to the Women's March, which will be on the National Mall at Lincoln Memorial, protesting against the efforts of the Women's March to normalize abortion. That's what they want to do. They want to normalize it. They want to destigmatize it. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to be there at the Women's March. If you want to be part of either one of these two events in Washington, D.C. on January 18 and January 19, the March for Life and the students and the Women's March, let me know. Go to markharrington.org. Go to markharrington.org. Let me know. Email me and say, Mark, I want to join your team. I want to be part of this. I want to be part of your boots on the ground for the March for Life and for the Women's March in Washington. And we'll set you up. Come to Columbus. We'll leave from here. 2-day mission trip to Washington, D.C. I can tell you, it'll change your life for good. It'll change your life for good. It's something you should be part of. So, signing off, this is Mark Harrington. Be tuning in the next several weeks to our program here. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, America, to bless God.
You've been listening to Mark Harrington, your radio activist. For more information on how to become a witness against the evil plague in America, call Created Equal at 614-269-7808, 614-269-7808, or go online to createdequal.net, createdequal.net. Be sure to tune to The Mark Harrington Show next time for your marching orders in the culture war.